So here we are. There is our console table. Let's quickly talk about how this was set up and then how we will bring this over to the render program. This is actually a conceptual model intended just to communicate the rudimentarily needed features or details of a model. So for example, it has nothing inside. As long as we don't show this, there's no point in modeling it. This, for example, can be very useful when we have to put a furniture piece into an environment a client has and would like to see the design with their furniture piece in context, or when we would like to insert a furniture piece, but we don't find a model for it, and we have to recreate it. And you only want to recreate something in this case till it becomes informative enough, like what we have here. This model is also very hard edged. It has no roundings in it. Even here, the handle has actually no rounded parts. And the main reason for that simply is I can, and every modern render program has or should have this, I can, during rendering, render edges actually rounded. The actual geometry is sharp, but during render time, it will look rounded. We will go back actually to this topic of rounded edges and how to render it later in this video. But this allows me to have a rendering that is more detailed, and in SketchUp, a model that is more simplified. And SketchUp really loves very clean, simple geometry. The more messy or complex a model can be, the more sluggish SketchUp will be. Simply a fact, unfortunately. The materials are also cleaned up. I have everything removed I don't want. I have here now giving this a good name, wood painted, and here the metal material for the handle, I called metal handle. Again, this is maybe sounds like a very basic or mundane thing to do. However, think about it, you have later 200 objects you need to adjust the materials for in whatever render engine you will use, from Enscape to V-Ray, Blender. It's then a lot easier when in the host application, when you look for materials, you find materials that have logical names and not some cryptical names. This, for example, just had many letters because that was kind of like the name for this image file I downloaded. Very good. Okay. Since all we want to do is bring this one over quickly as a model, what we can do is select the whole piece and then we will export it. To export this now, we have in SketchUp two options: export it all as one piece or export the selected groups. We will actually export this whole group as one piece. Go to File, Export, 3D Model, and then we select OBJ. We go to the correct folder, give this a logical name, Options, have Export Texture Map turned on, Swap YZ is by default off, and meters is correct. Very good. And then I can hit Export. Cool. Now let's go to Blender, and I will go to Import, Wavefront OBJ, go to where I have this exported to. Then I will make sure this is Y up, Z forward. And under Geometry, I will go to Split by Body. So what this means is actually a really nice function. It allows me to import the exported geometry from SketchUp and sort it or split it by the groups. So that means all the groups I see here as individual objects, I will then in Blender have too. Pretty cool. So let's do this. And there we are. There you can see now all actually the groups. And then when I click an object, you see it shows actually the object inside the outliner. And per object now I can also see what material is being used. So these are all painted 0.003, so they share the same material. and this is a metal handle. Very good. And down here we have the glides. They use the front color, kind of like SketchUp default. This is something that's actually useful if you want to do this when later we want to move individual objects around or modify individual objects more. In our case, maybe what we simply want is we want to bring in this side stand as one object, click on it, modify the materials, maybe move this around, and that's it. So press A and X to delete, and then we go to File, Import, Wavefront, select this, and then here we turn Split by Group off, Import, and now we see this is just one object. We can give this a name. Double click. And maybe we just call this console table. Very good. And now here you see here, when I select this object, it shows me all the three materials. So the wood, the metal handle, and the front color. Pretty cool, no? Yeah. Okay. Very nice. So that's kind of like how easily then you from SketchUp, you can bring everything in. Since we are talking about importing, exporting, just in case, let's say here, this handle, I just would like to only bring over. Or I have a group. This group has all the furniture pieces in it. Let's say chair and whatever. And then I want a particular piece I would like to export. Then I, in here, select just this particular group, which has a geometry I would like to export. There we are. Go to here. This is now activated. Very good. Now this is the handle. Okay. And then I go to Blender, File, Import. There we are. There's the piece. And yep. Now there you can see there's this individual object. Okay, very good. So before we continue setting up materials, etc., we have to talk about proper studying your environment. It is rendering is actually very logical, I would say, once you know what you have to do. But it can be very daunting or mystical when you're new to it. And one of the easiest way to get good at it is simply take references, aka photos. So for example, here I made myself a photo of the piece. And when I take a look at it, it is actually very useful because there are a lot of elements I can learn from this. For example, what is the color of the object? What reflectivity do we have? Is there actually a structure on the reflectivity? You see, this is not kind of like smooth. Even here we have a little bit of a grain. Then I can really see also here these edges are highlighted, meaning they are round. They reflect actually a light source. And it's very complicated or difficult to render something if you don't know really how it has to look, because it's kind of hit and miss. Particularly when you're new, it's more miss than actually really hit. And I find making yourself some study object, like here, taking a photo, really, really truly helps understanding how something is made. If we now continue looking at these images, for example, what you see here is how is the reflectivity of the surface from the top. And now here I can see, hey, this actually gets more reflective. That's a very important piece of insight. I also can see how much is this really reflective. I see more like a little bit of this bird. Here now I can even see a little bit more of the feet reflected. Here, this is just a study about surface structure. From a distance, now this looks nice and good, but getting up close we can see, oh, there are a lot of imperfections and scratches. We're not going to put in these scratches, don't worry, but this is just something to point out, because we might not see this from a distance. Here, this is a really beautiful shot from the side with the sunlight being reflected on it, because it shows me that the face here has actually this wood grain visible, and then the drawer front is blurry, a little bit reflective, and it has kind of like a stone texture to it that's polished. No, doesn't really look like wood. And here you can see, based on the angle, this even changes. Okay, very good. The handle, again, from a distance. Oh, look, it's a brass handle. Well, but if we get closer, then we can see what's going on here. And also making a photo from various angles helps me, like in this case, understand how does this material-wise look like, and how does this actually reflectivity look wise, and is there a structure on it. Again, I'm looking for material, so the image, the amount of reflectivity, and also is there a structure on it. Okay. I talked earlier in the video also about rounded edges. Here in this set of images, very clearly you can see the rounded edges and the highlights they're creating. It's pretty cool. Now, rebuilding the natural imperfections, all the stuff here, is possible if you have the time and you want to, and you're being paid for it. But in our industry, also what we want to do is provide the illusion of something that gets close to it. So we don't have to put in all these imperfections, but looking at these rounded edges and the highlights, this is definitely something we might want to put in. And I was talking also about how in SketchUp, we don't want to model these details in because it can make the models actually rather complicated. Okay. And last but not least, scale. It's really good when we take photos to also have a scale next to it. So when we create a material, we can measure it. Is this pattern actually to scale? Is this pattern actually too small? Okay, very good. So with all that said, let's go back to Blender. So here is actually the geometry piece. And what I would like to do now is give this a rounded edge. And I mentioned that most professional programs, they allow you to, during the render time or through other means, interactively show edges being rounded. So with my object selected, I go here to this icon. It looks like a modifier. Think about it as functions we can add to this geometry. We click it, click here, go to bevel, and then here maybe we type in 1 millimeters and enter. Very good. And then when we rotate our view and zoom in a little bit, hey, we can see something is there. You see, it does really actually add the geometry to it. And you see, we can make this even rounder when we add more segments to it. Segments like in SketchUp when we add segments, same thing. So maybe, let's say maybe 10. Very good. Yeah. So this is a feature that's on the fly. When we go into editing the group, you see this is not there. This is literally really just added on the fly to it. Very good. Perfect. So you see, this is actually a very easy trick. We simply add it, and then when we would do a rendering, this will actually look much nicer. Okay. So let's continue setting up our scene. To make life a little bit easier for us, we will go to the scene properties and set this to imperial, and then we can set this to inches. Very nice. Okay, we would like to render this console table against a wall, maybe on a wooden floor, and a baseboard behind. Okay, so let me show you how we can very quickly create actually an environment. We will do this in a very, very simplistic way. Okay, good. So just out of precaution, press Shift S, cursor to the world origin. So the cursor is right there. And then we go to Add, Mesh, and Plane. This is actually way too small. And then we can go to here, turn this panel on, and then we can drag this one and make it bigger. Let's say 100 feet. Inches. Okay, very good. Then let's go to edit mode. I will go to edge select this edge, go to move, and bring this one back. I don't know, maybe to here. It doesn't matter much. Very good. Then we would like to extrude this one up, so to make a wall. No, I will not use the extrude command. Here we have, there are actually various techniques to use. Extrude manifold is also the extrude like in SketchUp. I will use actually a shortcut, which is much, much faster. So the shortcut to extrude is E for extrude. And then once you press E to extrude, you're instantly in move command. So we are moving the extruded edge. And then by pressing Z, so the Z key, Z axis, we can restrict it. So let me do this, just pay attention to, and then we do this one more time. So I press E, and then you see now it actually moves around. Then I press Z. Now I can only move this up and down. Then I can click. And then here now you see I can specify, just 80 inches. Very good. Okay. Let me do this one more time. So you click this edge, I have it selected, E, then we're extruding, Z. And since we work actually with inches right now, upper left corner, take a look at it. You see the numbers go up and down. Also right now I can type in 80. This will then extrude this up, 80 inches. Okay, that wasn't too complicated. Very good. Let's create a small baseboard. Very, very simple. So object mode, go to add menu, cube, and then here, this cube, we say maybe 0.5 inches, kind of small. Now we can zoom in a little bit. We bring this here to this edge. Okay, very good. You can press N or click on this icon here, this triangle, then go to items, and then here you see it says dimension X, Y, and Z. This is the size of this piece. We would like for Z, let's say 5 inches. See, I type in the dimension, very nice, or 4 inches. You see we can adjust this. This actually gave the object a scale factor. So when we use this dimension adjustment, afterwards we want to click on this apply scale. Okay. Now what we will do is we will put the baseboard right onto this corner, extrude it along it, or move it along it, and then we will round actually a corner. Okay, so to do this, you see where my mouse is, there we will go to vertex select for snapping. Okay, now I can bring this back a little bit and move this one up. Very good. Now I move this along the y-axis. I have the move command turned on. And now I hold the control key. And you see the moment I go to a point, it snaps to it. Click along the x-axis, click along the z-axis, click. And every time when I get to a snap point, I simply release the mouse key. Okay, let me undo one more time. So I click along the y-axis, hold control, release the mouse button, move down, hold control, release the mouse button, move along, hold the mouse button, hold control, release the mouse button. Very good. Easy. Okay, now we want this to be to the end. Let's go to edit mode, face select, select this face, and zoom out a little bit. Now I can move this to there, and then I hold Control and it snaps to it. Sweet. And you see, there's actually our very basic baseboard. Let's give this a name here. Baseboard. And this is actually wall floor. Very good. Maybe we would like to create a small quarter round. Okay, that's going to be very easy. Add and cube. We'll keep this at 1/2 inch. Good. We move this up, bring this over, and then we do the same thing again. Move it down, hold Control, and release the mouse button. Bring this over, hold Control. Bring this in, and then I bring it back, hold Control, and release the mouse button. Beautiful. Okay. Then we go back into edit mode, face select. I simply select this face, move it along the x-axis, hold Control, and there we are. Now this looks actually way too simplistic. What about we would like to round this edge? Easy. Go to edge select, select this edge, there we are. And then we say, hey, you give this a weight. Think about this weight as 1 is 100% or 0, 0%. Then we go to bevel, say, please bevel this by quarter inch, but please only do this by using the weight. And you see now only this edge is actually beveled. So I can control when rounding an edge, which one should be rounded. Alternatively, I could also use the bevel command if I do this, but the problem then is, how could I say that? It's permanent. There, I rounded the bottom part. I can't undo this. This is not what I want. You see when I turn this off? There. So this is actually why this bevel modifier by using a painted edge is very useful. This is a very common technique that we paint edges, kind of like masking them, and then we apply functions to them. Because again, I have a very simplistic cube, which is the quarter round, or not quarter, like 1/2 inch round. Segments, we can add more segments to it. Let's say maybe 10 to make this nice and round. Okay, very good. See, when we're starting to add these tiny details, it makes everything look a lot nicer. This is one whole piece. We can move it, for example, a little bit backwards. Let's go to the side view. There, clong, and we'll hit it. Okay. Very nice. Good. Awesome. Then we can maybe actually add another piece on it. We will add two birds, and then we will work at the materials. The project file, which I'm sharing with you, has one folder called assets. And inside there is a file, Iam's House Bird by Vitra. I'd like to give proper credits. I have this file from 3D Shaker. It is part of their free model collection. Blender, the same way like SketchUp or other render programs, they have online a lot of very good, as you can see, models you could get by and use in your projects. These models are actually provided as Blender models, but also here we can export them and use them, for example, in SketchUp. That's kind of like the nice part about rendering. It's just all mesh-based. Blender, SketchUp, Cinema 4D, Maya, different programs, but internally it's all the same. Anyway, with proper credits given, how do we get this file into Blender. So we import. We can actually import wavefront or OBJ mesh models, but this file is a Blender file. So we can go to Append. Append actually allows you to look into one Blender file and then copy something out. Think about it like importing from one SketchUp to the next one, or importing from one Blender file to the other Blender file, moving data between them. So we go to File, Append, then let's navigate to the folder, and here's the file. Now this is actually interesting. When you double click it, you look into the file. There's the structure, there's object, and there's the bird. Append, and there's little birdie. Cute, no? So there we have the bird. This bird we can move up, can go to a side view, can move this up to here. And now to place it really perfectly onto the table, we can move this up and down, and then we hold Control key until it snaps, for example, to a point, and then release the mouse key. We can move this back a little bit to here a little bit. Very good. The bird maybe in relationship to our reference photo is maybe a little bit big. So we can scale this one down. This is very easy. We have the scale command here. We can scale along Z, Y, and X, or we can scale at the same time. You see it gets bigger and smaller. There. Maybe like this. Very good. We have here a scale factor applied, so apply for the object scale. Then let's have a copy of this. In SketchUp, we have something called make a group or make a component. A component shares the geometry. We have the same in Blender too. Maybe at this point you start realizing how similar these programs are, by the way. So you can go to Object, Duplicate Object, or make a linked. And link basically means component. Okay. So this is Alt-D. Mac and PC, same function. Alt-D. Then we can press Escape. So we don't move it. There's the piece. We can move it away because it got copied right into the same position. Then we can rotate it. And maybe here, this one, we rotate a little bit there. And then we move them around and have some fun. Okay, very good. That's actually how easy this is. Now here we could, for example, say bird 1 and then double click and we call this one bird 2. In Blender, two objects cannot have the same name. It needs to be different, or it will be bird.001, bird.002, because the names are very unique. Because we can, when we do a calculation or a function to a name, we want to make sure we are hitting the correct object. Anyway, that was more geek talk. Let's keep this easy. Very good. I would say at this point, this is actually pretty nice. And now we can take a look at how we can create the materials. But before we make materials, well, we need light, no? Because without light, we can't really see anything. So we will add a nice light on the left side and maybe a small fill light on the right side. Okay, so add, then here is light and area. You can move this to the side, move this one up. Let's adjust the light. Strength maybe 2, we don't know yet. This might be all adjusted. I forgot to switch the render engine to cycles. Okay. No, actually the menu looks a little bit different. Still, it's very tasty. Then the shape we switch to rectangle. Now we need to figure out which one is which one. So this is the width, so maybe 12, and let's maybe make this 60. So it's a nice long piece. Think about it maybe as a door. And we can go to locals. So I know the local orientation of the object. This is the y-axis. So it's very easy to see when we select objects how they are rotated. You see how the y-axis goes different directions. And then here it's so elegantly solved, moving the stuff around, easy. In an orthographic view, by the way, if we are successful at clicking at it there, we see this blue area. Here it's the green and the red. This is basically two axes. And the white ring is a three axis, which is a little bit more complicated, which is why you see me very often just moving things around in orthographic views, like side, front, top, etc. Very good. Maybe a little bit to here. We can rotate it along the x-axis, maybe a little bit, so it looks and shines the light right at it. Very good. We also would like to have a camera. So let's go add camera. There we are. Go to here. The camera we set to 0, 0, 0. I use the tab key. Then along the x-axis, we move this one up. Rule number 1. In interior photography, cameras are horizontal. They don't look up, they don't look down. Right click, split horizontal. And then we here say right click, split vertical. And then we can press N actually and T to turn these things off, or at least the N and the properties, and go to camera view. Beautiful. Let's adjust also our format, maybe 1000 by 800. Okay, maybe 800 by 1000. You see how I'm changing the ratio, so it's taller than wide. Move this back. Actually, I can maybe get a little bit closer. Go to here, and now you see I do not see the lower part of the table. No problem. This is why when we go to the camera function, turn on the shift. Stop. There we are. Easy, no? Very good. Okay, scroll wheel, we can move forward and backwards, or we press Z to do a rendering. Okay, so there we have light. Very good. We can go to the world, set this click to white. Ooh, this is really bright. And maybe for the moment to 0.1, shouldn't be that bright. We might want to add another light, kind of like on the side. Let's make a copy. We select this light. In top view, it's very easy. Shift D. Here, when you see Shift D, that goes right into moving the object. There we are. Click. And then I can press R to rotate it in top view, or I simply use here the the x-axis to rotate it. And maybe here I move this a little bit closer so the light comes somewhat from the side, for example. Where the lamps are right now is not really final. It's not really fine-tuned. We're just simply setting up an environment first. Okay, very good. So now, for example, with the materials in place, it makes a little bit more sense to, with the lights in place, it makes a little bit more sense to work on the materials. And the reason why we put in the birds is, well, we know, for example, when I take a look at these two images, I can pay attention to how are these birds reflected in it. That was the main reason behind it. Not because only the birds are nice, but it helps me to understand how stuff should look. Okay. Back in Blender, before we continue, because we want to make sure nothing crashes and we lose the work, we go to File, Save, or Save As. Then go to the desktop. And for example, here I say this is console table rendering. Very good. And this is turned on. Save Blender file. Very good. Now this is actually only the Blender file. It did not include, for example, the materials for the metal part. If we, like in SketchUp, would like to have these materials be inside our 3D file, well, that makes actually very convenient to move just to copy a SketchUp or a Blender file between different devices without having to make sure we copy all the images. Then we just go to File and External Data, Pack Resources. 6 images were packed, very good. File, save, okay. Now actually all is in there. Cool, okay. Now, how do we continue? So I mentioned before, to do rendering is actually very logical. You just need to know what you have to do, and to be able to know what you have to do, you need to have references. So we will study how to set up kind of like a painted wood material that is somewhat glossy, has a little bit of structure to it. Okay, so let's go to this icon here. We click these icons you see in every upper left corner, and we can load new functions in there. For example, the image editor. Then click on open. I will navigate to my file here, reference textures. Yeah, there we are, references, material study. And I would like to see a preview. We can get a preview. Click on this one. And there we are. Very nice. I can, at this point now, click on this. Actually, no, I will click on this one. Open. Very good. So what I can see here now is, besides, I can zoom in with the mouse wheel. I can see the metal and the reflections, but I also can, for example, work on sampling colors from it, etc. So what we will do first now is rework this kind of very eyesore of a base color. Okay. The next step is a little bit computer geek. This is maybe compared to what you did before foreign, but it is kind of like the way how the industry works. And once you understand how this actually internally works, it's very logical and very easy. So I will move this one up a little bit so I can see all these settings here again. And down here, this I will set to shader editor. Middle mouse button is move around, and scroll wheel is zoom in and zoom out. Okay. Here we have a list view, here we have a flowchart view. And this all will make sense once we are done. So don't worry, I have your back. We would like to adjust this material. Okay, we can actually turn on the rendering. And to make the rendering nice and fast, we will go to here, viewport, denoiser, and say, start softening this after 5 samples and turn this on. Very good. And then when we, for example, rotate around, we don't really see much of reflections, etc. Okay, so very good. You see how I'm kind of like trying to move my camera to a similar position than I have inside my photo. Go to materials, and there we are. Now let's turn all this stuff off. So no reflectivity, no roughness. The light is maybe a little bit weak. So let's click the light. 10 watts. Yeah, there. This is better. 20 watts. Too much. 10 watts. Okay. And we zoom back in, click the object. Now you see this is much more illuminated. Back to the material, and yeah, eyesore. We can click on this color, and then we get a color wheel, and we can drag this around and kind of like, well, move this around till it matches this. Or I can click click the eyedropper. Now this is a tricky part. Now this is the shadow, so this is darker. This is really white because it reflects the light, which would be maybe the correct color here to click. Yeah, maybe something like this. Maybe a little bit more value. Maybe a tick more saturation. Yeah, okay. So we see here there is a structure and a reflectivity. We have matched the color a little bit. Okay, so this is wood, which is painted, which has a basic, let's say, plastic-like reflection. You have two types of reflections if we want to break it down this way. You have metal and you have non-metal. Metal reflections are colored by the color of the metal. So a gold reflection is gold, a copper reflection is orange. Everything else, the reflectivity, or sorry, the reflection is white. So metal and specular is everything else metal. So we can bring this one up. Ooh, look at that. Now we can see actually the birds in it. We also see the light. This looks like it's a nice, pristine, high lacquer finish. Super high glossy. Welcome IKEA. But the reflectivity, as we can see, is not as strong. So let's tone this down a little bit. Okay. And this is very sharp. And if I rotate around, yeah, there you can see, super sharp. But it is not as sharp. Okay, so let's add a little bit of roughness to it. When we go with the roughness too high, it, as you can see, it has a reflectivity to it, but it is so rough, it gets very, very blurry. So a little bit of roughness is okay. There. When we get closer and maybe zoom to this view, we could maybe then also here go to this image. Now we can compare. So how far are you good? So you see actually what I meant with, there is really a logic how to create these materials and how to approach 3D rendering. And the beauty is, it doesn't matter what you render. It doesn't matter if you render wood, stone, a chair, a house, a car, a hairdryer. It is just geometry. We have to simply study our environment and rebuild it. Okay. Then I will zoom out to this area one more time. Very good. And when I, in this image, zoom in, besides all the dust and the scratches, if I pay attention to here, well, the reflection is blurry, yeah, but there's also a structure to it. So we have the color, we have the structure, and the reflectivity and its roughness, and then we have the structure. So the structure is maybe the most, how could I say that, abstract process I'm going to show you now, but you will see always the same once you understand how this works. This here we will move up a little bit so I can zoom in more. Okay. And I will go back to maybe this video, this image. And there we can see there is something, or this other image was also really nice. This one here. Oh yeah, there we can see this really good. Okay, so we're going to rebuild this. In computer graphics, we're not modeling this structure. We will simply simulate this structure by modifying how the reflection will be rendered. For example, here it's weak and it is blurry, but it's smooth. There's no structure in it. And we're going to fix that because this is not correct. Okay. So actually maybe Also here, I tried to zoom into a similar position. By the way, you might at one point be running out of zooming in and zooming out options. So when you go to view and then frame selected, then we can actually zoom in better. And when you press N, and for the properties, we go to view, we can also switch this maybe to a tele or a wide angle. I'm going to, let's say a 60 maybe. Okay, and there we are. See, again, I try to match this. Now we realize, wow, the gap actually I model is way too small, is much bigger in the real piece, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, so to create the structure, this is much easier via a node network. And again, everything what I'm going to show you now, here we use nodes. A lot of programs use nodes. Others, they use this list system. The process, the idea behind it is the same because it's an established technology. We will add a texture. There are various textures. White noise, waves, this is interesting, whoosh graph. Noise is actually very easy. We will work actually with this noise texture. Okay, so when we add it, you don't really see anything happening. When we click and drag with the left mouse button and connect color to color, oh look, you see there is now something over it. When we switch this to 200, oh, there's more. If we switch this to 500, there's even more. What about 1500? Okay, that actually got smaller already. Maybe 1000. Okay, good. Yeah. So you see, this is a three-dimensional texture or material. This noise texture generates, and then we have scale, detail, and roughness, distortion, and whatnot. Okay. Now, the reason why I put this one into color is so I can see how big this is. And I can disconnect it. Now I have my original piece back. Very good. We will now do the following. And this is the logic. We have our material. Here we define how something should look. The color, reflectivity, the roughness, transparency, structure. And then the output will be put into the material output, what we then see. And now the normal, which is the three-dimensional structure, needs to get information. How do we want to use this to adjust the surface normal? Think about surface normal, the surface structure. So the command for that is using a bump. We go to add vector bump. There we are. With the mouse wheel, we can zoom in a little bit. Go to here. So this factor we put into height and bump we put into there. And then when you release the mouse, it will look actually very structured. You see? Distance. Change this to 0.00001. Maybe a little bit less zeroed. Okay, there you see this. This is actually right now, I'm having the denoiser running. So I will, in this case, turn off actually this viewport denoise. And then you will see, oh, sweet, there's actually really this structure. So when we maybe add one more zero to it, the distance, think about it with the 3D structure like hills and valleys, and we define the vertical height. Strength is another option to do this. But there you can see now, hey, look, we have actually this grizzly structure. What about actually on top when we take a look here at our birds? Yeah, there you can see there's actually something happening there, even here in the front area. Pretty cool, no? Yeah, I think so too. Okay, there's obviously more to fine-tune everything, but where we are right now, this is a pretty good element. So when we summarize it, we can set the color, amount of reflectivity, amount of overall roughness, and then if we want to give this a more three-dimensional structure, we can do this via a bump mapping. Cool. Let's take a look at the metal part. To work on the metal, we just click here to the material, click metal. There we are. And you see here it uses this material, this image, to texture the handle here. If I rotate my view, so again, I'm looking kind of like towards the light. Oh, look at this bump mapping. This is actually really good now. Then maybe the roughness is too strong. There you see. And then the specularity can go down. Now this is metal. Technically speaking, we would need to do it this way. But I'm quite sure this is actually sealed with a plastic, like an epoxy, which is plastic, transparent. So we give this a metal, maybe a roughness. Very good. Here, now I would like to open my handle reference. And this is here. There we are. Okay. When I go into a top view, again, this really helps when we match actually the looks. When we zoom in a little bit, my scene right now is a tick dark, so I will go to the world and make this simply brighter. I did not match this very well. This is also kind of tricky when you have such a custom material. Find an image in Google that is really the same. But there's something else what I wanted to show you. This is more, yeah, kind of like brassy. This is more copper. So the colors are off. From a distance, you can see this looks deceivingly the same, which is why I picked actually this texture. We would like to adjust this color. Again, the way how this material works is we have a texture, which is being used for giving this object a color. And then this is being used as the material. So this image, we would like to change the color. Okay, so in between here, we need to add a color function. Add color, hue, and saturation. We can drag this onto it. And in case this happened, no problem. Color to color. And there we are. So with saturation, we can saturate the image. That's actually pretty close already. Now we can go the opposite. We can make it black and white. Value, we can make it really dark. We can make it super bright. And with hue, we can make a color shift. So if you go left, you see it gets these colors, and to the right, those colors. 0.5 is where it was, 0.55, 0.6, 0.52, a little bit of desaturation, 0.55. Yeah, look at that. You see how we, by trusting our good eyes, matched actually the colors a little bit. Okay, very good. So, because we have the bevel modifier, we also get nice rounded edges. I did not talk about one feature yet. So here, press Z, and then we go to solid view. And I try to zoom in really well. With this object selected, go to object, and then we will go and say, hold on, shades there, shade smooth. Very good. Oh, it was shade smooth already by default. Very good. Flat. See, when I go with flat, this is actually flat shaded. This should be nice and shade smooth. It's the same actually in SketchUp too, the shading surface flat or soft. It's a visual effect only. It doesn't really make it rounder. Very good. So we go to our camera now. Let's take a look. So when we press Z and say start the rendering, how does everything look? This is a little bit overblown because, man, this is a huge gray box everything sits in. So this environment, if I set this to 0, is really dark. Maybe 0.1. Okay, back to the camera. There we are. I will also at this point, simply this way the grain goes away quicker. I will turn on the denoising that filters out some of my wood material, as you saw. Here now I will go to the 3D viewport. I can move this down a little bit, and now I can have fun actually with the lights. By the way, never forget frequently to save. So this light, when I turn off this light, how does this look? There's the light from the left and the right. Okay. And we would like to make a nice kind of like studio-like rendering. We can go to here and let's say 15. Maybe make this a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Okay. What about you? We make this one 10. We add more light to it. If I set this to 0, you see all the light comes really from the left side. It's kind of like how we would like to guide somebody's view. What about maybe 15 on the right? And then here, this we say 2. So not so much from the left side. And you see how we are sculpting actually this way the look of our object. Also because this one light is a little bit forward, this front area gets illumination, and this light is more to the side. This area does not. So you see when we move this, now the front area gets light too, which makes it maybe a tick too flat. So let's bring this back maybe to here. Very good. Also, the light distance is really important from an object. Just keep this in mind. And it's the same like in real life. Now, when you take a piece of paper or book and you get closer to a lamp or work further away, it changes the strength. We move this away and you see it gets weaker. When we get very close, it's very overblown. And we can see the light in our scene. That's not what we want. We can also try out, add, and go to light area. And then we move one light up. We have a small light coming actually from the top. Maybe a little bit to there. That actually generates a nice illumination also onto the wall. Maybe not too bad. Don't know yet if we will work with it. We start adding actually a lot of objects. And at one point it will get kind of confusing what is what. So let's say here, this is area light left. Then this is area light top. And this is area light right. Very good. So actually when we zoom in, that's not a too bad rendering already. Now you can see when we crop this, it has character. Maybe the reflectivity now we can see is a tick too strong. So the specularity, maybe we lower a little bit. And what happened? Oh, you see, I had actually the wood, the metal material in my hand. Wah, wah. So here, so I have to be careful about it. So, yep. Maybe a little bit like this. There. Yeah. Okay, because this is not like IKEA super high glossy. This is more, it has kind of like a semi matte finish on it. Good. Okay, so we're kind of like starting to reach the end of this exercise. We now would like to add a material to the wall and a material also to the floor. And then we'll then show you how we can get those and how we can bring these materials onto the two faces. Let's talk about materials and where we can find references or examples. Finding the correct texture or material is just a labor-intensive process, and there are ways how to shorten this a little bit. Also, it's based on the level of degree of realism we want to achieve. Talking about realism, all the materials in SketchUp which come with it, they are so easy to use, and they are so outdated and just ugly. So if you want to make your SketchUp look like a beginner file, use the SketchUp textures. If you want your work to look more professional, never even dream about these materials. They're just simply very outdated. Okay, but honestly, they shouldn't even include those anymore. So for our floor, we would like to find, well, a wood floor. So, okay, let's go to Google and type in wood floor and see what we can find. Then we can go to images and we have here various results. So, quick tip. It's very easy to explain what you're looking for and what you're not looking for. We're looking for textures that are big enough in terms of file size and which also are flat, two-dimensional, do not show shadows, do not show highlights, do not show reflections or any other stuff. So for example, these perspective views don't really work anyway. Let's see. This is kind of okay. This has, for example, here some shading. This is actually not too bad. No, this is very, very flat, as you can see. This is actually pretty good. Here, there you can see there's some reflection on it. That's not good. That's unusable. Okay. So when looking actually for these materials like this, right click, and then I go and say save as and save it to somewhere. Let's give this wood floor 1 a logical name so we can make a copy of it. When we search for materials, ideally you also want to click on this seamless. Seamless basically means when I have a texture and we tile it, I won't necessarily see misalignments or visible repetitive patterns that break the look, which for wood floors makes this actually very, very complicated. For this video, we will simplify this step a little bit. And now, for example, if we take a look at this one here, seamless means that this part will later continue here, and here will be this part starting. Okay, very good. You might actually notice also a lot of brands here are popping up. Quite often we can actually go to these brands, as long as their website works, and actually maybe copy some of their images from them. I have on the desktop, for example, here a tile texture. And we'll show you how we can do something quite creative with this tile texture. Okay, let's go back to Google. Two other very good sources to find materials is obviously the SketchUp Club. Again, be a member, 12 euros per year, very cheap, not really that expensive. They have very good materials. So we could go to textures, and then we go to, let's say, architecture, wood floors. Let's see what they have. Parquet. Oh, looks good. Okay, then they have all these options here. The stuff is actually really nice. Works well. This is all curated. Colors can be adjusted afterwards in Photoshop, etc. if we need, but a lot of work here is already done. So we don't have to do all the stuff for us. If you are a free user, you can use just image. If you are a paying member, again, 12 euros per year is peanuts. You get all the other image maps too, which are important to make materials look really hyper realistic. Another very useful service I find is actually AR textures or architectures.org. They're pretty cheap, $5 per month. You can rent it as need. And it's kind of like a wood generator. So I click, for example, on this, go to here, edit, and now it tells me, so I have this area I need to create a texture for. Okay. I would like to have maybe this pattern. I would like to have 12 rows and 5 columns. And you see how it adjusts everything. And then we can even specify the actual size of what we need. This is really awesome when we have to make wood floor materials and we know the proportion of a room, because it will create an image that really captures that that space. And you will see here there are repetitive elements, but they're more randomized, so they don't really stick out as much. Then we could go to download and then pick out the type actually we want. Okay, very good. So I have actually 2 materials downloaded. So for example, one here, one there, and here this I will call wood floor 2. I will give these logical names, and I will give this the name wall tile. Again, name your materials. This is really very useful. And you see here, I have a folder called textures, and inside these textures, I will drag these images in there. Very good. Okay. So when I go back here, this is my folder where I have everything inside. There is this textured folder. Here are my references. Here's my Blender file. So I will actually save my Blender file inside this folder. So everything is kind of like one nice package. Later, I can just move this file and I have everything in it. For example, including the SketchUp file, etc. Just as a piece of housekeeping. Anyway, let's go to here. Now, what we will do is, how can we bring the wood texture onto the floor, and how can we bring the tile texture onto the wall, set the stuff up, and have cool renderings. So let's start actually with the baseboards. When I zoom in here and the molding, we can see here this is slightly angled. So right click, shade smooth, and then we get this kind of funny look. We have to turn on the outer smoothing. So now this is nice and sharp. And these 2 objects, we will simply make white and kind of like a semi-eggshell paint. Good. New material. Here we type in new, then there we say baseboard. Very good. Can be white. Roughness is okay. Specularity there. Okay. Then when I click actually this quarter round, half round, I don't want to go to new. And where are my materials? When I click on this selector here, you see there are all these individual materials. Okay, good. So here, click on baseboard. Now these 2 objects have exactly the same material shared. This is the way how this works here. Cool. Now, the floor. What we will do is we will add a floor material, tile it, and assign it to the floor, and then we will add the tile material to the wall and tile it. Okay, so let's click new with this geometry selected. Then we say floor. Okay, I will move this one up a little bit because this will be easier to work inside the node flow. We can do this in kind of like this stacked system. It's just more complicated in my opinion. It's less visual, less intuitive. So we would like to bring in this wood material. Okay, to go into color, add texture, image, open. Then where do we have actually our textures? There we are. See, it makes really sense sorting everything nicely. There's my wood floor, and I drag this one to there. Sweet. There. It is. A little bit big. I think we can agree on. So how can we make this actually smaller? We want to tile it, size it, multiply it more. Right now we only have this wood texture that goes in there. This is a part actually where SketchUp is super well developed. Here we actually have to do this, or only in SketchUp actually this is really well solved. Most programs do exactly the same what we do here right now. So we need to have something called a mapping command or function, because we have a scale. We can bring this one to there, but then we don't see anything right now because right now the software doesn't understand, okay, how should the texture actually flow over the geometry? So we need a texture coordinate system. Think about Y and X. So the UV, this is basically this Y and X. You might remember UV unwrapper in SketchUp, same thing. We connect this to the vector, and then there we see it. Now we tell the software, use this established unwrapping and map this image as a color. And then we go here to scale, click and drag and say 4. Now there we have it 4 times. And look, there you can see actually the tiling issue. It's seamless, but you can see it has tiles. Not really super good, but we will keep it in this video. We can zoom in a little bit, maybe from here, then we can see actually also the wooden floor. We can change the roughness to make it a nice high glossy super vinyl. And this is terrible, so a little bit of roughness added there. This is actually kind of good. Again, same way how we did it with the wood, also the wood floor needs to have a little bit of a structure. So we do a little trick. We will go add, bump, same command, drag this one to there. And then what I'm going to show you now is a very, very simplistic shortcut. There's a little bit more, but we take this a tick shorter. We will drag this one to here. And maybe here distance 0.001, 0.01, maybe. And there you can see, there it is. There's actually our structure inside this reflection, giving us the illusion of, wow, this is actually truly a 3-dimensional wood surface and not just like a vinyl fake print. Okay, good. Let's keep it at this. What you see, I hope with this part, like what we did with the wood, it's the same with the floor here. It's always the same, the setup. The coordinate system, the mapping, the images, the bump, the reflectivity, that's it. Once you understood this, the rest is really very repetitive. Okay, we have an interesting wallpaper. That's not really what we want. Let's fix that one. So this is now how you add 2 materials to an object. We have this object, then we go to plus, new. Here we call this wall. Okay, so zoom in here. Then we go add and say texture, image, open. Then we go to our texture folder. There it is. Now you see now why it really makes sense to pre-sort all your files. It's easy to find then. Open image. And where is it? We don't see it. Well, we have these two materials added to the object, but we didn't really tell the software what face should get what material. So go to edit mode, go to face select this face, select the wall, click assign. Okay, very good. Then we don't really see anything. Do me a favor, press U for unwrap. And there it is. So what does unwrap basically do? Think about it. You have a cardboard box, which is three-dimensional, and you make it flat. And then you can glue packaging decorative paper over the faces and then rewrap the box back. This is basically what unwrapping did. And again, in SketchUp, we use the UV extension tool. Same thing. Okay, there you can see actually there's the piece. We would like to rotate it. So, same deal. We go to Input, Texture Coordinate, add Vector Mapping, UV, Vector, and then we need to figure out which one is it? Is it the Z? 90 degrees? Yeah, it is the Z. So we rotated the texture. Very good. Yes, I agree. In SketchUp is actually, it's pretty cool how they did that tool. Even while that tool is super old, that's probably why they never really updated it. The way how it looks is just really genius. Hope they have a patent on it. Okay, very good. So actually, no, I don't know if I set click assign. When you click floor and click assign, click wall, click assign, you see how we can on various faces swap out the material. That's basically the way how this works. I hope I said that in the video. I actually just forgot. That's how concentrated I am, not making a mistake and having a fluid narration of this awesomeness we're doing. But you can see now that, hey, this actually starts to look really, really nice. We have actually this tile, we abuse this tile as, yeah, part of the background, but it's very flat. It doesn't have any three-dimensional look really. So how do we do this? Well, we know with the bump mapping, we did that already a few times, class. Okay, very good. You're listening. Awesome. So convert, nope, we go vector bump, color to height. In this case here, I will switch this to non-color. Why non-color? Just trust me here for the bump. In this case, we want to do this. The main reason behind that is for bump mapping, it uses like, let's say, grayscale value, go up and down and not really colors. We have a lot of funny things here. These are actually the, guess what? JPEG artifacts. But the bump mapping effect is also very strong, maybe 0.1. Then it's filtered out a little bit more. And look at that. Now we have really nice sharp edges. Looks like a plaster wall. Pretty cool. Yeah. We can keep this actually at this. If we want now, maybe what happens when we tile this 4 times? And there you see actually this is not seamless. We're getting tiles. 10. Even more. We can tile it so much that actually the seams will disappear. Or actually it really will look like this is an actual tile that's being used. It's kind of cool actually. This is the fun you can have with digital rendering when you, I don't want to say do nonsense stuff, but you experiment and actually can end up with quite interesting combinations. There, I will keep it at 1. This is really, really nice. And then pretty much is actually time to finish up this rendering. To bring this rendering exercise now to an end, I would like to show you how we can create this type of a light effect, which is, well, let's agree, pretty cool. And it is so easy to do. So I will delete this cylinder and I will select my area light, which had actually the shape of a square. And I will change this to a disk and scale it down to 2 inches. So we make it pretty small. Okay. So now this is essentially a round lighting surface. And because it's round, it's perfect. We can put it into a cylinder. Okay. We want right where the light actually is to add a cylinder. So select the light, Shift S, cursor to the selected. So this 3D cursor will be moved to the where the light is. So you see, I put this to the grid, cursor to selected, to my object. And then when I go up Shift A, which is the same as here, add, I can add a circle. Sorry, cylinder. The cylinder can have 64 vertices like segments. That's very good. Radius 4 inches, depth 10 inches. Cool. And actually just in there on top, it looks kind of fun. You're just asking yourself, what is going on in this composition? There is this table, the 2 birds, and a cylinder on top. Okay, so we can rotate our view. I will press Z to go into wireframe, and then right click and say shade smooth. So it's nice and round. You see there's a crazy artifact going on. We need to make this actually break the edge. Go to here. So this triangle, go to auto smooth, and we can turn this on and off. Here's a little trick, by the way. So you don't have to do this all the time when we select an object. Go to this menu and then click it, right click, and then say add to quick favorite menu. Now here in 3D view, when you press Q, there it is. Okay. Then we can go into edit mode, go to face select, select the bottom face X and delete just the face. It just removes it and zack, there's actually our light. Isn't that nice? Yeah, it's pretty cool. When we zoom in, we see this is very thin. We would like to add a thickness to this part. That's very easy in object mode. We go to the modifier, add modifier solidified. That's the thickness. I don't know, maybe 1/4 inch. Okay, very good. Yeah. And then based on how big the cylinder is, how high the cylinder is in relationship to also the light, we can create pretty cool lighting effects, as you can see. This is really the beauty of rendering and using rendering, lighting, and materials to design, visualize your space. Now, particularly in interior design, AutoCAD gets you only so far. Sketching gets you only so far. SketchUp only gets you so far. At one point, we also want to go into rendering because we can just visualize how something might work. Also, sometimes you create really nice accidents, no? And then say, oh, okay, change of plan. Looks nice. Goodie. We might want to change the size of the cylinder. Maybe bring this down a little bit. Let's go into edit mode. Go face select, press A to select everything or select all here, A, go to scale. And then you see here, there is a command, or not command, there are these green, red and blue rectangles. When I click on this, you see it only scales X and Y. Obviously I make it just bigger than the light source. Very good. I can in object mode, go back and then say, hey, this is cylinder light form. Beautiful. Okay. Now let's finish this all, save. Based on how we would like to do this. So with do this, I meant how do we save everything? You see, I have my folder here. There is this blend file. It makes all the references to the texture here. And I would like to later copy this file in here and have all the textures still in there. You see, this is actually really 10.8 megabyte big, no? So it's not necessarily super small. We can actually, again, go here and say pack materials. 6 more files got packed in, for example, the wood floor stuff. And then we hit save. Okay, very good. I will close the application. Just to show you now, when this is actually my reference file, I can move this to here. All this is just the export stuff for the materials, and textures I can remove. Very good. Then, oh no, this is 20 megabyte. It's still pretty small. I can open this. And when we do a rendering, because all the materials are inside this blend file, it loads it. By the way, we can go also clean up and say clean up unused data blocks. Yeah, there were a few pieces which I can throw out. Okay. Click save. Let's see. Whoa, that actually shortened it. Now it's only 3.6 megabyte. So like in SketchUp, we can purge stuff. Pretty much that was the same way. And for the photography geeks, this is the last piece in this video. We can select the camera. We can go to the camera, go to viewport display. Here's a passepartout, which we can turn on more. We also have thirds and other elements. I had this actually here turned off there. Or ratio, diagonal. Now we can actually show all these centers, something I use a lot, or for example, thirds as compositional guides. It really, really helps. Very good. Now, then to do a nice rendering now, because we have actually fine wood details. This is now here a question for the denoising. We can set this maybe to 1000. Some details might actually get lost based on the size. That's also okay. It's all beginner stuff we do right now. And then it's an 800 by 1000 size image. So this means when we do a rendering right now, I turned off the rendering, go to image and zoom in. So this is like the actual size of the image. Okay, and there you see it's rendering. We have a little bit more of JPEG artifacts in our wall, by the way. This continues like working and working and working till, for example, the software thinks, okay, enough noise. Like you see here, the noise is reduced. Okay, let's finish this. To shorten the rendering, because it says this will take 4 minutes. And if we actually like the result, what we see, or we don't need something that is so refined, for example, at the beginning when we make short renderings, like to preview, then we simply go back here to the render settings and say, yeah, after 100, after 50, it's okay. It's just only a screenshot. Now, so with this, we will set up the quality of our rendering. Since we talked about preview quality and size of renderings and purpose of rendering, it's time to set up everything for the final rendering. If we take a look at this image, it looks a little bit faded. It's kind of like contrast is missing. And we're going to do what every YouTuber, Instagrammer, TikToker, and whatnot will come and was there before loves to do, slap color filters onto images. So inside the render properties, we scroll down, go to color management, scroll further down, and then here we have filmic as the transformation, and currently it uses none. Let's go to very high contrast. Click, and whoa. You see how brilliant this image looks. Kind of faded, super brilliant. Actually really good. Okay, maybe medium contrast. Yeah, actually, maybe high contrast is the best. Other one is too strong, other one is too weak. It's also a matter of preference. Then we can go to render image. Well, we use our 800 by 1000 pixels. And once this is rendered, we can go to view render. There it is. You might notice actually something fun is going on with the background. That is because we're using a really tiny image and scale it onto the size of the wall. And then we also see the beautiful JPEG artifacts. For our case right now, this is perfectly fine. We're just learning all this stuff. Then we go to image, save as, PNG, give this a logical name. For example, console table rendering, and save as, and that's it. So I hope that this journey into how to bring a console table from SketchUp over into Blender and then develop an environment with lights and some assets and then create materials and render a nice, beautiful composition was very enjoyable. You learned a lot from it. Hopefully you saw how repetitive these tasks are, and you will see in upcoming videos, it's always the same. That's really the cool part about it. Okay, have a good day. It's actually really sunny outside. Bye-bye.